What is up? Welcome on into Pickswise Playbook presented by Superbook Sports. This is week 4 edition because 3 weeks of the NFL season done, dusted, and we're going to break it all down for you. Lauren Jabari here with Jared Smith, Tank Williams. Jared, happy Wednesday. Now Thursday morning when it's going to be posted. How are you?
Yeah, the days don't exist on this show. It's like a Pangea of days that go from one to the next as we get close to Sunday. But everything's great. The NFL, I'll be honest. I feel like, and Tank, you can maybe attest to this or not, we've played almost 20% of the season. I would say half the teams, I still have no idea what they really are. Ton of up and down, ton of parity, I guess maybe is the word. Mediocrity is another word I threw around this week. It just seems like there isn't really a dominant team in the league this year. All of the good teams are starting to show a little flaws, and some of the bad teams are playing a little better than we expected.
Yeah, Tank, I wanted to ask you that because I feel like week 1 in the NFL, and you being a player in the past, you probably know this well, people overreact after week 1. They're like, oh my God, is this team as good as we're seeing? Is this team as bad as we're seeing? Week 2, it evens out a little bit. And then week 3, I feel like we kind of see what we're going to expect from the teams all season long. Do you feel like through 3 weeks, you know what to expect from some of these teams? Or you kind of with Jared, we don't know who some of these teams are to this point?
To a certain extent, you can see that the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're trending towards being a better team. But I would say, like, my first year in the league with the Tennessee Titans, we started off 1-4. And then we end up going on this crazy run and we end up in the AFC Championship game. So I would say even 5 games or so through the season, you still don't know. But I think what's important is something that Jared touched on and something that we saw last year. There's so much parity in the league right now that if you get on a little run and you get hot early on, then you can roll and become one of the more dominant teams in the league just in an instant. I mean, just look at the Cincinnati Bengals last year.
So you're saying that the Raiders still have a chance because at this point they're the only 0-3 team in the National League. So we'll see what happens when it comes to them. But let's talk about Tank for a second. You talked about your playing career. You played for the Titans, 02-05, Vikings 06-07, Patriots 08-09, and guys, can't forget, this guy was a first-team All-American in 2001, University of Stanford.
That's gonna be my claim to fame now.
Never going to leave that out again. All right, let's get into what we've seen from 3 weeks now in the NFL. The underdogs are 21, 26-1 straight up. The underdogs are 29, 18-1 against the spread. And the unders have gone 30-18. Now we have some undefeated against the spread teams. They say good teams win, great teams cover. Well, guess who's a great team? It's my Detroit Lions, who are 3-0 against the spread through 3 weeks so far. Let's go, boys. Dan Campbell showing them how it's done. The Dolphins, also 3-0 against the spread. The Falcons, 3-0 against the spread. And the Texans, 2-0-1 against the spread. Tank, when you look at stats like this, it's teams that you maybe wouldn't expect. It's the Lions, it's the Falcons, it's the Texans. Great teams cover. That's all I have to say, right?
Yeah, very true. And I think it also hits on what we were just talking about earlier. Like, so many times you get stuck on these old narratives about teams being traditionally bad. Like, the Lions have been traditionally bad for a long time, but people who are paying attention saw the little run that they got on at the end of last year and thought that there may be a chance that it can continue into this season. And it did. And so that's why both of us were riding the Lions when they went into Minnesota last week and pulled off our best bet.
Oh, I know. And Dan Campbell took the blame for that one. That was a tough ending to that game. It's crazy. I know they might bounce back here in week 4. We'll see. But Jared, your thoughts on just some of these undefeated against the spread teams, the Dolphins, the Lions, the Falcons?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you look at last year's ATS records, the Dallas Cowboys, playoff team, Cincinnati Bengals, Super Bowl runner-up, Green Bay Packers, NFC Championship game, Detroit Lions, right there. So this isn't anything new from the boys in the Motor City. They've been cover machines for the last now season plus. So definitely something to keep an eye on. I want to give credit to the Atlanta Falcons a little bit. We're not going to talk about them a ton on the show today. We'll get to them a little bit in the teaser segment. But listen, I think this Atlanta Falcons team is playing a little better than a lot of people expected on offense. Marcus Mariota looks very confident. In fact, I would put his numbers up against almost anybody in the league right now. How about this? In week 3, led the league in completion percentage over expectation, led the league in air yards, 5th in success rate. And overall this season, I'm curious, Tank's thoughts on this, he's 5th in efficiency on early downs. And Tank, I know as a cornerback, as a safety, on early downs, that's when you're kind of in between. Are you going to run? Are you going to throw? So early down efficiency for a quarterback, to me, is a huge indicator of success. And Mariota's been a top 5 quarterback so far this year in that category.
Yeah, you know what helps that? Like I saw a tweet on Twitter today, and they said, "Who's the most underrated player in the NFL through 3 weeks?" And you know who my player was? It wasn't Mariota though. Cordero Patterson. Like Cordero Patterson
Wow.
is 3rd in the league in rush yards, and so what are you talking about? His early down success. When you have a guy that can pick up yardage like that, he's averaging 6.2 yards per carry. When you can run it down someone's throat, even when they know it's coming, it sets up the play action pass and everything else. We've seen Drake London getting busy. We saw Kyle Pitts getting involved in the game against the Seahawks. So Atlanta has a little something going on. They just got to keep that momentum going.
Good teams win. Great teams cover. Something to keep in mind going into week 4, guys. One more thing to touch on for week 3 before we move on to week 4, because we have a lot of games to break down heading into this weekend. Jared, I'll start with you. Your biggest takeaway after 3 weeks of NFL football?
Yeah, listen, Tank's got the Jags on there. I'm going to put the Eagles in the mix, and those 2 teams are going to play each other this week. And I'm glad that we're both putting them high on our list of surprises to week 3, because I'll be honest, I expected it from Philly's offense. It's Philly's defense that has now emerged. The first 2 weeks of the season, I talked about it on the chin with the best bet last week. The reason that I liked the Commanders against the Eagles was because I thought Philly still had a bit of a tackling problem, a little allergic to tackling early in the season. At least that's what the grades are telling us. Well, all of that changed on Sunday. Not only did the front 4 really step up, but you saw the secondary defend at a very high level. Those 3 corners and the safety position have been fantastic for Philly. And now you're getting the front 4 explosion. They're the only team in the league besides the Jags and the Bills. So there's 3 teams in the NFL right now that are top 10 EPA per play, expected points added, in offense and on defense. That means you're a very balanced team, Jacksonville and Buffalo being the other 2. So very impressive performance from Philly. Their schedule down the stretch is a cakewalk. They should, based off of the weakness with Tampa and the Rams and Green Bay, they should be the number 1 seed. And I'm calling that here in week 4. The Eagles are going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs based off their schedule and the weakness with those other teams. So I was barring injury, of course, of Jalen Hurts, I was very, very impressed with what I saw from Philly, both sides of the ball on Sunday against the Commanders.
Don't even mention a Jalen Hurts injury. Knock on wood for that one, Jared, because we all want to see Hurts go 18 strong weeks at this point. See what the Eagles are going to be able to do. Tank, he mentioned the Jags. They're your biggest surprise after 3 weeks. Why? Tell me more.
Surprise, surprise. I have another half-baked quote because Jacksonville Jaguars went out to Los Angeles and took the Chargers cocktail like Nasty Nate. It was crazy, man. Like, no one expected this, really. Like, Trevor Lawrence going out there throwing for 262 yards and 3 tubs. You have James Robinson, who runs for over 100 yards and gets a touchdown. You have Christian Kirk balling out. Zay Jones balling out. Even Marvin Jones had a touchdown. And let's not forget the defense shut down the Colts, shut them out the week before. And then the Chargers only able to score 10 points. And so this team is playing complete ball. And honestly, I'm anxious to see how they match up against Philadelphia, because I agree that Philadelphia is one of the more dominant teams in the league. I think when you have a team that can run the ball as effectively as they can, when people know you're running at them, and then you have dogs like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the outside, Dallas got it too, and the defense is hunting. Like, this is going to be a hell of a game. Like, I know when we probably looked at the schedule going into the season, like, Jags, Philly, but like right now, this is the game of the week. Besides, but we do have Buffalo too, but they up there, 1 and 2.
But they are up there. And I mean, you look at the last 2 weeks, the Jags have held their opponents to 10 points total over the last 2 weeks. One of those being a shutout, obviously, against the Colts. And then the Chargers with only 10 points when Justin Herbert and his McRib, we talked about that, shooting that up with Toradol. But he still looked injured. They have some injuries on the Chargers right now. The Jags are looking like the real deal, and they're setting Trevor Lawrence up for success in that offense. It's crazy. And now they have more wins this season than Urban Meyer did in his whole tenure with them last year. So it's crazy. It's crazy to think about that. My biggest surprise after 3 weeks, 2 of them, actually. One of them I'm not going to go too into depth. The Raiders, what the heck is going on out there in Las Vegas? They're the only team in the NFL at this point that's 0-3 with the talent that they have get your shit together, boys, and figure it out, because this ain't
Say
gonna
it
be
again
good
for those in the
you.
back.
For those in the back, get it together, boys. Figure it
Spicy
out.
tonight.
Heading into the rest of the season, Jared,
Extra
what
hot
was the
sauce.
stat again? Teams that started the season 0-3 have made the playoffs what percent of time?
Like 6%. It's really bad.
And
Unless
Tank
you're
was on
Tank
one of those
Williams,
6% teams. Yeah, unless you're Tank Williams and you
did you guys
start
start 0-3, or was it?
No, we
1-3?
didn't start off 0-3 though. Yeah, I think we were 1-3.
See that?
Yeah.
They got that one win.
We
early
were
that
1-4.
got
I
off.
can't remember when we got the first win, but I know we weren't 0-3. We didn't start off that
I'll look
bad.
up 1-4 teams making the playoffs. That's not as prevalent, because when you get that first win, you get a little of the monkey off your back a little bit. You feel a little bit better, even though 1-4 is not.
Yeah.
A little bit, but you still walking around town like looking over your shoulder, like people like, man, y'all suck. Like you got to get it together. So when you 0-3, they really on your throat.
Unless you play for the Lions and no one expects anything and no one's looking over anyone's back at that point, because you're just expected to be bad playing for the Detroit Lions until this year. But the other team that surprised me after 3 weeks is the Dolphins. And the biggest surprise for me, and I told Jared this on Monday, is the fact that all 3 weeks they've won games in a different way. Like week 1 was a super physical game. Week 2, the defense didn't really show up, but their offense had a massive fourth quarter against the Ravens for a comeback when the defense didn't have their best week. And then you look at week 3, and yeah, their defense still wasn't the best, but they did help hold the Bills to only 50% red zone conversion rate. And they were able to help win them the game. And they just came off of a win against the Super Bowl favorite team heading into this season. The Dolphins are the real deal. I know Tyreek got a lot of hate for his offseason move, leaving the Chiefs, leaving Patty Ice, and going down to Miami. Guess what? He's thriving down there. Tua, he's looking pretty solid after 3 weeks. So it will be crazy to see. And I will say for your Jags, Tank, for your Jags, I think that we're going to get a true test of what they're made of this week going against a Philadelphia Eagles team that has been rolling all week long. I'm excited for those 2 matchups. I'm really, really pumped for. I'm excited to see the Bills play too. It's going to be a really great week of NFL football. Speaking of, let's get into it, boys. We got week 4 to talk about. We're going to start with one of the biggest games so far heading into this week, the Bills taking on the Ravens. The Bills are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 meetings in Baltimore, but they want to get back on track against the Ravens, 2 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Bills almost came back against the Dolphins last week. They fell just short. And I feel like the fact that Josh Allen had 447 total yards was kind of like swept under the rug because they lost that game. And I know the Ravens bounced back after a horrible loss in week 2. They got it done against the Pats. Lamar Jackson threw for 4 touchdown passes in an 11-point win. And he leads all quarterbacks right now in touchdowns thrown this year with 10. Jared, your prediction for this game, what are your expectations now?
Well, this line's kind of bounced around the key number of 3 for the last few weeks. It opened in the summer at Bills -2. Then the look ahead last week was -4. Of course, Buffalo loses. The Ravens look good. Then it gets down to 3. And then the initial money's on Buffalo to get back to 3.5. So we're kind of dancing around that key number of 3 all week. And I think the Buffalo injury situation is really the first end-all be-all part of this handicap. I don't know how long we have on this show, but I can read you the injury report. It's very long. Ed Oliver, Dawson Knox, Jordan Phillips, Poyer, Bates, Benford, Davis, Dawkins, Jackson, Kumaro, Lewis, Miller, Morse, Murray, Saffold. That is who popped up on the injury report on Wednesday, either in a limited fashion or just didn't practice at all. I mean, that is a really, and again, we're in week 4 now, so no one's fresh anymore. There's been a few weeks. The attrition nature of this sport is going to start to rear its ugly head. It's really bitten the Bills hard. So if you want to tell me what the Ravens' chances are in this game, well, I would say they're pretty darn good if half the Bills' starting defense is still out. Now, we're not going to know who's actually playing and how healthy they are until Sunday. So this part of the podcast might not be as useful as others because I don't really have a lot of insightful knowledge to give you other than check who is in the lineup for Buffalo. We saw their defense hang in there against the Dolphins on Sunday. But they were on the field for 40 plays. The offense was on the field for 90 plays. I think that much more, detriment to the Dolphins defense, which we'll get to maybe a little bit later in the show. But I think it's a tough handicap this week because of we have no idea really who's going to be on the field for the favorite.
Yeah, Tank. And I know you being a player, there's a huge difference between the starting season 3-1 or 2-2. And I feel like both teams know that. Are they going to come out hungrier? What are your expectations? Do the Bills bounce back after last week?
I think the Bills bounced back after a tough loss last week down in Miami. I mean, that's a divisional game, and the way we look at it, it counts as two. And so losing the game that they felt like they should have won, Josh Allen missing that throw at the end that he felt like he'll make
Mm,
9 times out of 10, like that's going to
yeah.
linger, that's going to sting. And so I'm pretty sure he's going to come out hot against Baltimore. That being said, I mean, I'm sure Jared could speak to this. Like going into last week's game, the Baltimore Ravens going into New England, people really didn't know how to project that game because you always assume that Bill Belichick's going to have an answer for an opposing team's offense. The one guy is hard to have an answer for, especially the way he's playing ball right now, is Lamar Jackson. And so when you have to look at the Bills trying to face him with like all stocks loaded, like it's going to be a difficult task. Now with all those injuries in place, like this is going to be a shootout. Like we understand that Buffalo's going
Mhm.
to bounce back. They're going to put a lot of points on the board because everyone scores on Baltimore. That being said, Lamar Jackson is just that Swiss Army knife that is just hard to defend. He's throwing the ball effectively. They're running the ball effectively. I see this matchup going back and forth. And I mean, honestly, like I said, I mean, I thought that Jacksonville, Philadelphia is going to be the game of the week, but this one is just right up there too because of how both teams are coming into it. Lamar trying to get paid. Josh Allen already proven that he may be arguably the best quarterback playing in the league right now.
Mhm.
Like, there's a lot of narratives going into this one. So that's why I'm saving my last little punchline for later in the show.
I'll follow up with this
Ooh,
real
we get
quick.
a little teaser, if you will.
Justin Houston for the Ravens, fantastic edge rusher, also didn't practice. Calais Campbell is going to play, but he didn't practice Wednesday, and a couple of other guys on the injury report. But to Tank's point about the Ravens offense and Lamar Jackson, the thing that's impressed me the most this year is how much he's pushing the ball down the field. Duvernay and Bateman
Mhm.
especially have been big time additions. He didn't have those elements in prior years. He's still the same Lamar Jackson. He struggles sometimes with progressions and he'll miss some throws. But the element this year that's different, he has two deep threats. And Bateman was hurt most of last year. Duvernay's kind of in and out of production wise. Now both of those guys are clicking and it adds a different aerial element. And listen, Lamar's got a great arm. Just it's the intermediate stuff he
Yeah.
struggles with sometimes. He's pushing it down the field, and that's making this Ravens offense a lot more difficult to defend.
Yeah, the Ravens are the second in the league right now in scoring with 33 points per game and first in yards per play at 6.9 yards per play. And then you look at the Bills, they're missing 2 linemen and all 4 starters in their secondary. Last time I checked, that's pretty tough. But you still have Josh Allen and you still have Von Miller. That's why you go out and sign a guy like Von Miller in the offseason. So that game, I'm really excited to watch. A battle of 2 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. That's going to be exciting. Now, maybe the battle of the second tier 2 best quarterbacks in the league, the Jags taking on the Eagles. Going into this weekend, I'm excited to watch this game right now. But is Jacksonville a respectable team in the league now? What is going on in Florida? They shut out the Colts. They scored 38 points in a blowout win over the Chargers. They allowed only 10 points over the last 2 weeks, while scoring 62 points over the last 2 weeks. And I know the Colts are kind of in disarray at this point. And Herbert was injured, dealing with an injury. This week is going to be the biggest test for this team. We're going to see their true colors because, in my opinion, and I don't know if you guys agree with me on this, the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender at this point. It might be an overreaction, but 3-0 on the season. Jalen Hurts is up there for MVP. Devontae Smith is looking good. He's also looking real good on my fantasy roster right now because he had an absolute monster of a game last week. Tank, your expectations. Do the Jaguars take this game from the Eagles? The Eagles right now laying 6.5 points.
I don't know if the Jags win, but I would definitely put some money on the Jags covering. That's for sure. Like for me, this seems like entirely too many points when the Jacksonville Jaguars are playing this well in all phases of the game, on offense, defense, special teams. And one thing I was just kind of checking on before we started up, like the over/under on this game is 48.5. And when you look at it, what the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Vikings, was it 24? That was like 31. I mean, I can see this game actually going under, but being a really good game, even though we've had both of these offense putting up points, like both of these defenses. Well, Philly, they're definitely getting their credit. Jacksonville, some people are talking about them, but I don't feel like they're truly getting their flowers, but they may. after this game. I mean, because the number one pick,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he showed up in the week 1 against the Washington Commanders, and he's been flashing each and every week. And then you also have some other guys on the side of the ball, Josh Allen and some other dogs out there who's been playing really well. And so if I had to play a side on this, I would probably pick Jacksonville plus 6.5. I would take the
Mm.
under on this one, but a lot of times I like overs, and I feel like your best games are overs when it's just a shootout. But I think this can be a low scoring game that ends up being an instant classic.
If it's anything like the Eagles in the fourth quarter, it's going to be a low-scoring game. I pulled up their scoring by quarter. First quarter, the Eagles, Jared, have scored 7 points through 3 weeks. Second quarter, they have scored 65 points through 3 weeks. Third quarter, 14. And fourth quarter, 0 points. Are the Eagles frauds? Are they second quarter Eagles or are they fourth quarter Eagles? Which Eagles team are we going to get?
The context there is they've been ahead by so much. The second half hasn't really mattered a whole lot.
I just like stirring the pot a little bit.
You do like stirring the pot. You do. It's a big pot, and you got a big spoon to stir it with. I don't know what that means, but let's just move on. So
I don't know what that means, but I love it.
We're going with it, baby.
We're going with it. So you mentioned that the total was 48. We've got on the graphic 47. Well, that's very astute of you, Tank, because there has been some sharp money on the under in this game, despite the fact that the public, and you're right, the public mostly likes to bet over. The only time the public likes to bet under is when it's like obvious two defenses or weather or something like that. In this case, none of those things are taking place. And we are seeing a little bit of money tick down on the under. And it makes sense. Listen, when I look at the defensive grades of both teams, you've got the Eagles and the Jags top 10 in pass rush win rate. These teams get after the quarterback. And we've seen the other Josh Allen on the Jaguars have a very good start to the season. And obviously, I just mentioned what the Philly front line did. I mean, they made the Commanders look like a junior varsity team over the weekend. They are very aggressive. Jonathan Gannon's scheme likes to penetrate gaps. And they've got a really good front four where they don't need to bring pressure from the back. They can get there with their front, and their win rates clearly dictate that. I think the one thing I lean on here when I look at the quarterback battle, it's really hard to differentiate these two guys. And I'll be honest, they play very different games, Tank, but their numbers are very equal right now. So I'm looking at the top 10 quarterbacks in terms of their efficiency grades. Lawrence is slightly ahead of Hurts, but they're right next to each other. Lawrence is better on early downs. That makes sense to me. He's more of a passer where Hurts more of a runner on early downs. But to me, you have, again, two defenses and two offenses that we mentioned at the top of the show, two of the only 3 teams in the league, top 10 in both EPA per play on offense and defense. Very balanced. Very tough to differentiate them right now. I think Philly's got a little more moxie to them because they expected to be here. Whereas the Jags, I don't want to say playing with house money, but no one expected them to be in this position heading into this game where we're actually taking this game very seriously. So in that regard, I'd lean towards the Eagles. And I would expect maybe some regression with Trevor Lawrence because he's well blown past what the expectations have been through the first 3 games of this season. But you can also say that he's finally got some weapons at his disposal. So I think there's a lot of things to like with these teams. I'm not betting this game, but you can bet your ass I'll be watching it very closely.
I'll give you some trends that you can focus on while you're deciding to bet on this game. Jacksonville 0-7 against the spread in their last 7 games against the NFC. And Philly is 9-1 straight up in its last 10 games against the AFC South. So just a little nugget to chew on there as we head west to Indy, where the Colts are taking on the Titans. The Titans 4-1 against the spread their last 5 meetings. They finally got themselves a win last week against none other than the only winless team in the NFL in the Raiders. Derrick Henry, 20 carries, 85 rushing yards, and a touchdown. The Colts also did the impossible and took down the king himself, Patty Mahomes. But it really wasn't the Colts beating the Chiefs. It was the Chiefs' special teams beating the Chiefs. Indy's defense did do a good job of limiting Mahomes. Tank, I don't know if you feel this way, but their special teams were, Sky Moore ended up having that botched punt return, and then the next one he got all nervous and let it go over, and then they downed it at the 1 yard line, and then they missed a field goal. They missed an extra point. There was just all that stuff going on with the special teams. The Chiefs ended up beating themselves, but the Colts, they could still feel good going into this game. They're laying 3.5 points against the Titans. How do you expect this one to end up?
Well, I know how I expect this game to go. Have you ever watched a slap fighting match? When people just stand across the table from each other? Yeah, so basically this is
to admit that.
yeah, this is how I imagine this game going. You have Derrick Henry on one side, you have Jonathan Taylor on the other. It's basically just going to be a slap fighting match, and then we're just going to see who gets knocked out first. I think that's the only way to describe this game. Both of the passing offenses really haven't done too much today. Both of the defenses have kind of been in limbo. They haven't found their mojo just yet. But I think that kind of leans on that running game, gets that going effectively, and whatever defense comes to life, that's going to be the team that wins the game.
Yeah, the Colts defense might actually be a deciding factor in a game like this too. I know for Tennessee, their O-line is injured. Their defense isn't great. They're giving up the 4th most rushing yards in the NFL. Besides the slap fight that we're going to see between the two offenses, Jared, which defense do you think steps up and helps the team get this thing done?
Well, congratulations to Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if this is congratulations or not, but on Wednesday, he missed the first practice of his entire career. Tank, how many practices you missed in your career, bud? A lot? A little?
No, actually, I didn't miss a lot. Well, when I missed because I had surgery and stuff like that.
And the thing that makes that even more impressive is he's a running back. He's a running back.
Right.
You would think, nips and cuts along the way, bumps and bruises. This is a guy that led the league in rushing last year and missing his first practice this week on Wednesday. But I'll be honest, the guy that I really wanted to see back on the field practicing, which he was, at least on Wednesday, was Shaq Leonard. That dude is a massive piece to that Colts defense. We talked about him last week. I thought he was going to play. He was trending in that direction, didn't quite make it there. My guess is he'll play this week. But also DeForest Buckner and Ngakoue, Blackman, the free safety. They still have some key pieces of that defense out. So that's something to keep an eye on this week. The Titans injury report looks a little better. Burks missed Wednesday with an illness. I hope it's not COVID related. If it's not, you would expect him to be on the field. You had Hooker in the safety spot, also missed with a concussion. Very tough to handicap the concussion protocol. But besides that, everyone looked pretty healthy for the Titans. So that's a positive for Tennessee. And listen, Ryan Tannehill, he's played better than Matt Ryan this year. That's for darn sure. Matt Ryan's numbers have been awful. The Colts offense, lowest EPA per play in the league through 3 weeks. You've got the league's leading rusher. You've got a veteran quarterback that's been to the Super Bowl in Matt Ryan. You've got a great offensive coach in Frank Reich. You've got some pretty good talent on the outside. And I know Pittman missed some time, but he played on Sunday. And you're the worst EPA per play offense in the league? That has to change. No. We need to see a little more from that Colts offense. Maybe we see it this week against a Titans defense that's really struggled, but I have nothing to say about the Colts offense right now. They've got a ton of things positively working in their favor, and they have not performed yet on the field. That is something we need to see because this is a team that was, supposed to win the division, or at least right there, and they have not looked the part so far through 3 weeks.
Jared, there was something that just kind of popped up in my head. Yeah, there was just something that popped in my head, though, and just throwing it out there. We give Frank Reich his kudos, and we should. He is a good coach, but that being said, besides the kind of hiccup against Philadelphia, a really good defense last week, Carson Wentz has been playing fairly well, right? But then Carson Wentz in Indianapolis last year was Carson Wentz, and now Matty Ice.
Yeah.
We know he was up and down the past couple years in Atlanta, but now he gets to Indy, and then he's kind of doing Carson Wentz type things. So, it's just something to make you go,
Well, Doug Peterson gets all the credit for that Eagles Super Bowl. So, that's the guy that the Eagles want to crown as the Super Bowl guy. Frank Reich's supposed to get the credit, but it's really Doug Peterson was the head coach. I don't know. There's something going on there, Tank. Keep an eye on your sources in Indy. Something weird's going on there with that offense. I don't know what's going on.
Something is in the water in Indy. Something's in the water out there in Indy. It smells like an under game to me, and the total is hit the under in each of Indy's last 8 games. So also something to keep in mind. Let's go from one team that Tank played for in the Titans to another team that Tank played for in the Pats. They're taking on the Pats taking the Packers. My Michigan accent just came out in like full force there. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry you guys. That. The Patriots are taking on the Packers. But the Pats having a tough time over the last week or so. They lost to the Ravens. And they lost their quarterback, Mac Jones, at the end of the fourth quarter. High ankle sprain. He's probably going to miss a decent chunk of time. Who's at the helm? Brian Hoyer. Woo! Career record of 16-23 and hasn't earned a win for his team since 2016. Now, the Packers, they're riding the high of back-to-back wins against the Bears and then beating the GOAT and Tom Brady and the Bucks. And I know Alan Lazard, they're building chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, Romeo Dukes. This game, though, has the lowest total of any Week 4 game. Jared, your expectations, I know earlier today the Packers were laying 10.5. Now the line has moved 1 point. Packers now laying 9.5 points against the Pats.
Yeah, it seemed like a 4-point downgrade from Jones to Hoyer. That's what my industry sources were telling me. And I guess that makes sense. This look ahead was 6. Now it's 10. Yeah, sure, 4 points. It seems like the line's moved the proper amount. If it gets past that, 10.5, 11, it looks like that's where the line in the sand has been drawn by the smart money. And so my guess is you won't see anything past 10.5 at all this weekend. 10 probably the best number you'll get on on New England going forward. I'll be honest, I want absolutely nothing to do with this game. Green Bay's looked through the first 3 weeks. You would expect positive regression there. Their defense has been solid. Jair Alexander injury, a concern. I didn't check their injury report today, but for the most part, Green Bay has been relatively healthy outside of the tackles. Jenkins and Bakhtiari. If those guys are in, I feel good about Green Bay. I think they've got a good running game. I think Aaron Rodgers understands his new role with this team, which is not to push the ball down the field, control the tempo, run the ball, make smart decisions, and let your all-star cast of defenders win you the game in crunch time. I think we're past the point of Aaron Rodgers dropping 40 and being the MVP of the league. I think those days are behind us. I don't want to call him a system quarterback, but I think he's a guy that he's in an offense now that doesn't have a ton of, aerial weapons. Their offensive line's been a little banged up, but they've got 2 studs in the backfield and they've got a great defense, and they've got a coach that likes to slow things down. So the identity of this Packers team is changing. That's why the total's as low as it is. But from a betting perspective, this game really doesn't interest me that much.
Aaron Rodgers, wow, a system quarterback. I never thought that.
I didn't say that. I said I don't.
I know. Brian
but
Hoyer,
he's like
though,
bottom 5 in air yards. He's dunking and dunking all over the field so far this year.
Yeah. Tank, Brian Hoyer, I feel like he's been in the league for freaking ever. Like, did you play with Brian Hoyer when you played for the Patriots? Has he been around that long? No, I don't think so. But
actually, no, he was there. Yeah, he was there.
No, he was.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, when I was in New England, Brian Hoyer was there, and I believe Kevin O'Connell was there too.
Yeah.
Oh my God! So
Brian Hoyer was drafted in 2009.
Yep. Wow. So that was my last year there with the Pats. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, you guys did play together. What do you expect from him now, starting under center this week against the Packers?
I'm not going to focus on Brian Hoyer because I feel like I don't have to. I think in situations like this, you just need to kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. Lamar Jackson, who is an elite quarterback in the Baltimore Ravens, beat the New England Patriots by 11 points. So you mean to tell me Lamar, with that defense that he has, who everyone can score on, and so the Patriots are going into Green Bay with that defense, who's been balling out against everyone. They're playing with Brian Hoyer. You have Aaron Rodgers, who's an elite quarterback in his own right. He isn't the same quarterback as Lamar, but he's an elite quarterback. And you tell me that they can't cover minus 9.5 when Lamar beat this team by 11? Like, so, hey, I just got my antennas up. Because if they don't, then that just adds like a little something to the Rolodex and a little something I could possibly tweet out. Because, I mean, I think people are giving Lamar his kudos right now. But if you have Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he doesn't have the weapons let's think about this. Like, Aaron Rodgers may have a better complement of weapons than Lamar, or it may be about tit for tat. Romeo Doubs been playing well. He has better running backs for sure, since J.K. Dobbins been hurt and all the other stuff. Yeah, I mean, obviously Mark Andrews is a separator, but, I mean, Bateman and Duvernay, they're solid players, but you have Dobbs and some of these other guys. I mean, so It's about equal, actually. So, hey, I would expect Aaron Rodgers to go out there and do something similar in a different way that Lamar Jackson did against the New England Patriots.
Green Bay 9-1 straight up in their last 10 home games. I'm thinking they're going to want to make it 10-1 heading into week 4. All right, let's head to the AFC West because this division is fascinating to me. There's a lot of really good matchups going on. The Chiefs and Broncos sitting at the top of the division right now with a 2-1 record. Chargers 1-2, and the Raiders 0-3. We're going to get to that game in a second, but let's start with the Chargers taking on the Texans this week. I'm really pumped to see this game. I know the Chargers struggled last week against the Jags in week 3. They scored 10 points. They couldn't get the offense to go. They looked unprepared in that game. Now they're riding a 2-game losing streak. Now you look at Davis Mills, threw an interception late in the 4th quarter for the Bears to kick a game-winning field goal. I think the turnovers and they allowed a ton of rushing yards. That kind of like got them close to winning. They couldn't seal the deal because of a couple of mistakes that they made, and they're really desperate coming into a game like this. They know their team is going to have a hard time getting wild card berth at 1-3 starting out the season. Jared, your expectations for this game at this point right now? I think the spread's still set at 4.5.
Yeah. So as a lifelong Jets fan, we're not talking about the Jets on the show, so I'll give them a little love here. As a lifelong Jets fan, I felt like I was cursed because all the things that have happened to the Jets over the years. I'll start with Keith Byers from 88 and go down the list from there. After the show, we can have a powwow about my Jets curses. The Chargers, I'm sorry guys, the Chargers are more cursed. At least recently they have been. The injury situation in LA is so bad. I have no idea how a team that is as talented as the Chargers overcomes this. So you have the terrible news today about Joey Bosa, who's going to miss the rest of the season. Wednesday of the week. We're taping this on a Wednesday. Then you have Justin Herbert's Mick Riggs. We'll see how he looks this week. He did not look good on Sunday against the Jets. I'm surprised he made it through the whole game. Keenan Allen, J.C. Jackson, Corey Linsley. I mean, these are Pro Bowl key players on your roster that are out of the lineup at this stage. We talked a little bit earlier about the Bills situation. At least those guys, I think, are trending in a positive direction. It seems like the Chargers are more banged up every week. They're trending in a negative direction. At least with Herbert, you would expect him back. But I'll be honest, the lower body injuries for Keenan Allen, hamstring, J.C. Jackson, ankle, Corey Linsley, knee, those are a little tougher than ribs. Where I know ribs are painful, but you would expect guys to come back from that. The lower body injury, especially with Keenan Allen, it just seems to always be. It's hard to overcome these. So while they should beat the Texans on Sunday, there's a lot of unknowns with this team and their injury situation. Now, their defense is playing a lot better. I think Derwin James, we talked about him last week, he could be the defensive player of the year if they can win some games. I mean, he's that good. But they have so many other issues right now at key positions: center, wide receiver, corner, quarterback, defensive end. It's really hard to invest in this Chargers team right now.
It's crazy, all the injuries that they're dealing with. Houston, though, Tank, has not won a game in the month of October since 2020. It's been 2 years. They're cursed in the month of October. Is this a spot for Davis Mills and the Texans to come in with the Chargers being as injured as they are and maybe sneak a win at home?
Well, I admit that the Texans have probably been cursed damn near as long as they've been a franchise because they started up my rookie year. And they came into the NFL getting their head beat in by us on a regular basis. And it seems like that's continued for them. But there's also one more injury to add to the Chargers list for Sean Slater, the offensive tackle. He's out.
Forgot about
He's on IR. So the Chargers is, so they're dealing with a whole myriad of injuries. But I think the one thing that I've been focusing on this game is that, man, you could run the ball against the Houston Texans. Each team that they played the first 3 weeks in the season have rushed for at least 149 rush yards against this Texans squad. I understand they're going to be without Slater, but they need to get the ball in Eckler's hands. And if they're going to continue running Sony Michel and Joshua Kelly, some of these other guys, they just need to establish the run. That'd be the perfect way to take the pressure off of Justin Herbert and his ribs. And then that should open up some passing lanes, hopefully to Keenan Allen coming back and being healthy. And this should be a game that they can win. I mean, but
Hmm.
as you've seen, like the Houston Texans last year, that was one of the major reasons that the Chargers didn't make the playoffs
Hmm.
last year because they waltzed into Houston thinking it was going to be an easy win, and the Texans hit them with that two-piece in the yam, and so they need to make sure that that doesn't happen again here in the 2022 season, or they can end up rolling back to LA with another loss.
Ain't nobody got time for a two-piece and a lamb, you know what I mean? Houston, 1-7-1 straight up in their last 9 home games. So that curse may continue against the Chargers this weekend. Another team that's been cursed through 3 weeks this season is the Raiders. What the heck is going on in Las Vegas with all of the talent and all the offseason moves that they made? They were supposed to come in and be the favorites at this point to win the AFC West. Well, partially the favorites. I thought it was going to be a 2-team race between them and the Chiefs. I know the Broncos were going to be close, and the Chargers were also going to be close. But this is crazy at this point. I mean, looking at the odds, the Raiders to win the AFC West at this point are basically plus 2,000. 20-1 odds is what's on our sheet. It's crazy. Now they're playing the Broncos this week, who have had some issues with Nathaniel Hackett. The Broncos came away from one of the most boring games that I think I've ever watched in my entire life, an 11-10 win last week. Woohoo! Offense, baby! Denver only had 261 yards of total offense in that game. And the Raiders are the only team in the NFL at this point with an 0-3 record. They dropped last weekend against the Titans. This is going to be a game between two desperate teams and a coach in Nathaniel Hackett that wants to prove himself and a Raiders team that desperately need to get into the win column tank. Who wins this game? The Raiders are laying 3 points.
I have no idea who wins this game. I have it in my notes. Like, I have no idea who the hell wins this game. The only thing I can think about this one is that the over-under is set at 45.5. The Raiders have been averaging about 21 points per game. Denver's been averaging about 14 points per game. The Raiders'
Boy.
offensive line is straight doo-doo. And the Denver Broncos, I mean, they have a decent defense. We saw what they were able to do against the San Francisco 49ers. I feel
Yeah.
that as bad as the Raiders offensive line is and as good as the Denver Broncos D line is and their front seven, that should even it out to where maybe Russ gets a little hot. They score about 21 points. They knock the Raiders down a little bit, so they end up scoring about 14 points. Regardless, I think we get to that under 45.5.
Yeah, Jared, I know we talked about this earlier in the week, is the 3 losses that Vegas has are against teams that have since gone 0-6 in the other games that they've played, which ain't too good for the ego last time I checked. Do the Raiders
Just
get
win,
in the
baby.
win column? Do the Raiders get in the win column, or does Russell Wilson and the Broncos take advantage of a game like this?
Just win or just get your ass kicked. Seems to be the weekly motto here in Vegas. That's what happens after I leave the casino on a Friday night playing craps, Tank. All right, so when I'm looking at the Vegas defense, that's the part that would scare me on an under here. If there's any team that Russ could get cooking on, it would be this Raiders defense. But I haven't seen a whole lot there that I like yet. So I think the hard part really to swallow in this game, and the part that you have to kind of wrap your head around, how are the Raiders favored against anybody right now? And not only are they favored, but this line has gotten to 3. So if it gets, again, when it's in that 1, 1.5, 2 range, although when I looked at the numbers yesterday or this morning, more games are landing on 1 this year than ever before. We've already had 5 games land on 1 this year. For perspective, all of last season, only 8 games landed on 1. So we're seeing some weird final scores in the first 3 weeks of the year. Maybe that'll continue. Maybe it won't. We'll see. But this line opened as a pick 'em, then it got to 1, 2. Now I'm seeing 3 at a few spots. So there is some, support in the market for a team that's 0-3, obviously very desperate, against the team in, the Broncos that I think have some really nice pieces, but those pieces have not played as one team yet. Maybe this is the game where Russ and Nathaniel, play catch together in the backyard beforehand and they figure out their game plan. But I'll be honest, I don't fully trust the fact that the market is moving against the team that won over the Niners on Sunday night against a great team. The market tends to sniff these kind of spots out. And right now the market's telling me that the Raiders are the right side.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see if the Raiders are able to get in the win column. I think they're definitely better than what we've seen so far. They need to get the pieces gelled together. They need to get going. But Denver's defense is solid. They've given up the second fewest points in the league through 3 weeks. So that's going to be tough for a guy like Derek Carr and Devontae, like just all those guys to get it going. But they need to get it going, and they need to get it going extremely quickly. Speaking of a team that needs to get going, probably maybe going out of town because Hurricane Ian is coming into Tampa, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know if this game is still going to be played in Tampa. They're still a few days away. The backup right now is playing at the Viking Stadium in Minnesota, but the Chiefs right now are laying 2 points, coming into town to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is the game of the Super Bowl contenders for Sunday Night Football, and this is the game of the week. Both teams hungry, coming off of losses. The Chiefs lost to the Colts because of a special teams mishap multiple times, and the Colts did a good job of limiting Patrick Mahomes, so he's probably coming into this game a little frustrated, wanting to get it going. The battle of the GOATs, baby. Last week between the Packers and the Bucs fell short. Tampa Bay scored a touchdown with 14 seconds left, failed on a 2-point conversion, dropped that game. But both teams do not want to be 500 after week 4. They want to have a winning record in the win column. Tank, are you pumped for this game? Patty Ice going against Tom Brady and Tampa Bay. Who comes out on top of this one? It's basically a pick 'em at this point.
I wouldn't say that I'm pumped for this game, honestly.
No,
I'm just kind of like the thing is this: like both of these defenses have been playing well, but this game was so much better when we had Tyreek Hill playing with the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, I'm interested to see how this Chiefs offense is going to be able to navigate a really good Tampa Bay defense without Tyreek Hill. We saw some things bubble up against the Colts, and like Jared was talking about, the Colts are still missing a lot of weapons that kind of help them comprise one of the better defenses in the league right now. Like Tampa Bay, they have pretty much all their dogs healthy and they're hunting right now. They were able to shut down a lot of great offenses. They had Aaron Rodgers dinking and dunking, and they were able to pull that game off, late at the end. And so when you deal with a Chiefs offense that's still trying to find its way and is so accustomed to flipping the field with these big chunk plays to Tyreek Hill, you no longer have that. So that means you have to play sound football. And if it's 80, 75, 70-yard drives, I mean, it only lends itself to someone getting a sack or someone having a penalty or creating a turnover or something like that. And it just makes it so difficult to function as an efficient offense when you kind of eliminate that big chunk play out of it. And so it's going to remain to be seen if the Chiefs can get that aspect of their offense back together. And if they can't, I feel like this should be a game that Tampa Bay will win just because their defense has been playing solid ball the first few weeks in the season. We get Mike Evans back. Now they're talking about Julio's likely going to be back. Chris Godwin is playing right now, or at least he's practicing, so he may be back. If you get those weapons back for Tom Brady, he's shown that the deficiencies that we're talking about going into the season with offensive line really didn't hinder them too much against a really good Cowboys defense that's dominated every other opponent that they played so far this season. So you get Tommy Boy those weapons back on the outside. Fournette continues to run the ball the way that he has at the beginning of the season. I feel like this should be a game that Tampa Bay wins.
Tommy Boy has his weapons back. And, yeah, you're right about Tampa Bay's defense. They're allowing an NFL best 9 points per game. Do they shut down Patty Ice, Jared? Do they shut him down?
Yeah, they've got the number 1 EPA per play defense in the league. The problem is their offense is 30th in that category. So a massive gap between how well the Tampa offense is playing compared to how well the Tampa defense is playing. I think the location here matters. We were talking about this before the game, or before we came on the show here. If it's in Minnesota, it's probably a pro Kansas City crowd.
Everyone's coming if it's up there. All those Kansas City fans are driving over there.
100%. And where if it's obviously in Tampa Bay, pro Tampa crowd, but the conditions, the hurricane, that's another wrinkle in your handicap this week. You would guess bad slot. And that field too, Tang, I don't know if you ever played down there, and I call it Alltel Stadium. I've watched some college games down there. It's not great turf to begin with, especially when they play college games on it the day before. I know USF plays there. So that's another thing to keep in mind too. It might be a slop fest on Sunday night with this game, which is definitely not what the NBC executives want. But it might turn out to be a better game if it kind of is played in a phone booth, because I do think the Bucs offense, even with those weapons back, still a little limited because of their offensive line is still a little banged up. And how much time does Brady have to get the ball to those weapons? He's going to have to be very quick. Short passing game, can the Chiefs wrap up and tackle? Those are all things that I think are going to be the game within the game here as we get closer to Sunday night. But the weather is going to play a huge impact. So be sure to check A, where the game is being played. B, if it is in Tampa, what's the weather like? But Tank nailed it. The injury report's looking a lot better for Tampa this week. Gage, Godwin, Julio, all practicing, limited, but they're all practicing. And I'll add in Donovan Smith, who they need really badly to be back at that left tackle spot, also got in a limited practice work. Akeem Hicks, though, their star defensive ender, they brought in from Chicago to stop the run and be that extra piece there in the middle. He's not practicing, at least not yet this week. So that's a big one. The Chiefs look relatively healthy physically. Mentally, I don't know how they could be healthy after they blew that game against the Colts on Sunday. They should have won that game. They didn't. You would expect a bounce back there. The action here is trending towards Tampa, line open 2-ish, and now we're seeing a little bit of buyback towards the Bucs. My guess is this closes a pick'em, and it's going to be a really fun game. I would lean Kansas City here. I'm not betting this game, but I would lean Kansas City just because I think the bounce back spot for them is a little more pronounced. I think they're a little healthier, a little in better shape. But I'll be honest, there's a lot of variables here I can't quantify. The weather being one, and how healthy are those weapons being the other one.
Yeah, honestly, you said, is this game going to be a slop fest? It's going to be better than anything we saw last Sunday Night Football. 11-10, absolute dominating game.
7-6. Don't jinx us, Jabara.
Sorry. We're waiting all day for Sunday night.
Yeah, there you go.
Me and Carrie, let's go, baby.
Okay.
I will say, though, Jared, Kansas City is 1-6 straight up in their last 7 games against Tampa Bay. So, not the best track record when it comes to
including the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Waiting all day for Sunday night. Okay, I'm done now. I'm sorry. I just had to get it in one more time. And I love using my water bottle as a microphone. It's great. Let's take it to Monday, the day after Sunday, last time I checked on the weekly calendar. The Rams taking on the 49ers. This line earlier was set at 2.5. Now it's moved down to the 49ers laying 1.5. Battle of NFC West rivals, one of the toughest divisions in football. And the Rams have totally redeemed themselves in week 2 and 3 after absolutely getting dominated by the Bills in the opening game of the NFL season. Cooper Kupp has been doing what Cooper Kupp does best. He has the NFL best 28 receptions. And the 49ers, maybe not as hot as we thought that they would be with Jimmy G under center. He dropped his first game of the season last week, went 18 of 29 for 211 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Absolute snoozer of a game. Absolute snoozer of a game. Do the 49ers redeem themselves here, or do the Rams keep that win streak going, Jared?
I think the Niners win this game. So after the Niners lost I know I don't want to beat it too much because I know we're going to get to your opinion on this in a little bit, but I do think the Niners win this game, and I think the market's kind of telling me that because listen, what have we seen from San Francisco so far? Bunch of injuries, quarterback change, sloppy play, left tackle Trent Williams, the big pieces out, George Kittle in and out of the lineup. The Rams haven't looked great either, especially in the secondary. I fully expected this line. So this line, history lesson on this line. This line opened 49ers 1.5 over the summer. And after what we saw on Sunday, I thought for sure it would flip. Because listen, I know the Rams didn't play great, but they still won against a divisional opponent who they've, struggled with at times. Last year they lost to the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. I thought for sure after the Niners lost to the Broncos and the Rams beat the Cardinals, this line would flip and the Rams would be favored. Not only has it not flipped, it's now moved closer to 3. So that kind of tells me the Niners are the market's darling so far in this game. But that doesn't mean the sharp money is going to win. It doesn't always win. But I think the smart money so far, based off what the market is telling me, is coming in on San Francisco.
This may or may not be one of my best bets of the day, and I may or may not be disagreeing with the Sharps, and we will get to that in a second. But, Tank, I want to get your opinion on this game because the last year the Niners beat the Rams in the regular season series, and the Rams came out, absolutely said, here, trump card, NFC Championship game, won that for revenge, ended up winning it all. And that was LA's first win against San Francisco since 2018. Do they win this game again? Do they keep that going?
And that's the crazy thing that both of these teams look nothing like those teams that we saw at the end of last
Oh,
year. And
Yeah.
and the San Francisco 49ers, they're going to be without Trent Williams too. I mean, so that's going to be a major factor in this
huge.
game. But honestly, like, I'll tell you how I feel about this game. I just write like three little BS notes that I wrote down. San Francisco's defense could be the equalizer, which may explain why the spread is kind of moving the way it is. I said that San Francisco's offense looks compromised, and that
Mm.
was not. I mean, kind of factoring in Trent Williams, also factoring in how Jimmy G's playing and all that other stuff. And then I said that Shanahan and Jimmy G need to get in the ring and work some shit out because it seems like with them trying to replace him with Trey Lance, there's still a little bit of animosity going on right now. Seems like those two are not on the same page. I don't know if the lip reading was correct or not, but someone posted a video of Jimmy G maybe wording something like he's calling these whack ass plays or something to that effect. And so I feel like they need to get something together. There needs to be some synergy involved between the head coach and the quarterback. Something needs to get aligned because even though the Los Angeles Rams haven't looked that good, they've been winning ugly. And that's the most important
Mm.
thing. They're winning, even though it's ugly. And with the Niners dealing with an injury to probably, arguably, their best player, Trent Williams, and having to deal with some of this stuff as well,
Hmm.
and they could easily take another L, even though they're playing at home.
I love the drama, though. Give those boys some boxing gloves, put them in a ring, and let's call it a day, boys. I absolutely love it. I will say the Rams are 6-0 straight up in their last 6 away games. Something to keep in mind. But they're also 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 meetings. So pick a trend. Pick the trend of your choice. Whatever favors the bet that you want to make for this game. I know the one that I'm picking. Okay, Jared. Before we get into our best bets of the day, let's take it to teaser time. Quickly go through your slate of teasers that you have heading into week 4.
Hey, we hit a teaser last week. Broncos, sweat that one out.
Yeah.
And then the Bucs, the Packers going through 2 key numbers. That one was never in doubt. The Packers were in control of that game from start to finish. The Bucs-Broncos game was a bit of a sweat. I thought there was going to be some, fluky touchdown that sunk us there. But we're employing the same strategy this week. We're going to give you some underdogs, and we're going to move them through 2 key numbers. Full disclosure, I haven't bet any of these yet. I'm waiting on a couple of injury nuggets to drop. And I'm also waiting for some feedback from some of my very smart, bookmaker pals to chime in on which of these 4 teaser legs. They're all structured in the same way. Short underdogs through both key numbers. But I don't know how I rank them yet. You can rank them however you want. If you read my column that'll drop Thursday night into Friday on Pickswise.com, you'll see how I rank. Hey, we got to get the plugs in while we can. All right, Cardinals from 1.5 to 7.5. They're in Carolina taking on the Panthers. Saints in London town from 2.5 to 8.5. Actually, Tank, I have a follow-up question for you after I finish this teaser time. Vikings, this Vikings Saints game is going to be interesting, but I think getting the Saints through 2 key numbers is good. And then, of course, Falcons 1.5 to 7.5. Tank, did you ever play a game in London?
I didn't.
That's a shame. Hoping to get some context there.
Town.
Experience is like, yeah, I would hope so. But I was curious because to me the structure of the week changes so much, And
yeah, I can speak to like usually say for example when teams on the East Coast or West Coast have to fly the other way, so they make that long flight. Usually they'll end up flying out on a Friday or something like that because it always takes time for your body to acclimate to the new time zone and things like that. So just imagine having to fly somewhere from here in the States all the way to London and trying to acclimate there. And I'm pretty sure that there's going to be some different types of things that they have to do for the league, for publicity and everything like that to try to promote the game and stuff like that. So it's going to be a departure from their regular schedule, but I feel like the ones who can treat it kind of like when you go into the Super Bowl game, you have to adjust to a new schedule, but the ones who are able to adapt the best and kind of eliminate the noise and just focus on what happens between the white lines is going to be the team that ultimately wins the game. I think one key thing is that Dennis Allen has been the coach with the Saints for a long time, has been the head coach before. You have Kevin O'Connell who, has played for a Super Bowl winner. He's used to making those adjustments, in games that kind of vary from your typical game, but at the same time, he's a brand new head coach. Is he going to be able to kind of get his team acclimated to a new schedule and navigate that environment with him only being 3 games into his first season as a head coach. That's going to be something else that we probably have to factor in.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cardinals,
It'll be
Falcons. There you go. Those are the teaser legs. I'll tell you which one I actually bet later this week in the column. But London Town.
London Town, baby. Get all bets in. Make sure to go get your bets in London Town. All right, we're going to get into our best bets. But first, guys, Pickswise Playbook is presented by Superbook Sports. Download the Superbook app or visit superbook.com right now. And they're going to match your first bet up to $1,000. Plus, right now, guys, we are all rooting for safeties. If you place a $100 pregame bet on any spread or total at Superbook Sports, and there's a safety scored in any single game on Sunday, guess what? You get a $50 bonus. So make sure to visit superbook.com for terms and conditions to sign up for the #1 voted sportsbook in Vegas. Now, available at the palm of your hand. Superbook Sports, guys, make sure to check it out. Speaking of some of the best odds around that we're going to get, Tank, your best bet heading into week 4. What is it, my friend?
Hey, Kiss, what did I say? Keep it simple, stupid. Buffalo at Baltimore over 51.5. Josh Allen is playing some of the best ball, quarterbacking some of the best offense that we've seen here in the league to date. Lamar Jackson is on that Aaron Judge program. He's going out there trying to get his money and trying to break the Baltimore Ravens or any NFL owner that's willing to pay him. I think we're going to see fireworks on Sunday. My man Lamar has the invisible juice. I think there's no question that we're going over 51.5. I think this is damn near a layup. So, hey, just give me my drink so I can enjoy the ride.
Go.
Here's your drink. Take it. It's all yours. Love it.
I thought that was a microphone.
Well, right? Hey, it can be whatever you want it to be. Imagination. Come on, Jared. Come on now. Speaking of imagination, you're imagining the Cardinals are going to cover the spread in this game, huh?
I am. So this line opened Cardinals -3.5 over the summer. And what have we seen since? I would say average results for Arizona, maybe slightly below average for Carolina. Really put them on the struggle bus. Despite their win over New Orleans on Sunday, they haven't really figured it out yet. Matt Rule is 11-25 as a head coach. He's 1-25 in games with 17 points or more. And for now, from what I'm hearing, he still has the locker room, but that's dicey at best. And we talked about coaches being fired and, everyone wants to pile on Nathaniel Hackett. I think the seat is hottest in Carolina right now with this Panthers team. So if you're telling me that Carolina can't win a game where they give up 17 points or more, who's an offense that I probably wouldn't want to face? It's probably Kyler Murray and this Cardinals offense. He's coming off a tough game against a divisional opponent, against the Rams, and I think this is a prime spot for them to bounce back. And I love the buy low vibes. Again, I'm getting a team that was favored by 3.5 points just a few weeks ago. Now they're an underdog in this spot. And again, we haven't seen a whole lot of, we really need to sell Arizona and we really need to buy Carolina. That's not the vibe that I get when I look at these two teams. Baker Mayfield right now, in my eyes, is the most inefficient and inaccurate quarterback in the league. He's 33rd in success rate out of 33 qualifying quarterbacks. He's 32nd out of 33 in EPA per play plus completion percentage over expectation. He's not pushing the ball down the field. He's not hitting open receivers, and he's not having success at the quarterback position, despite having Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Jeff. They got a slew of weapons on this Carolina team, but they haven't been able to figure it out. Meanwhile, Arizona's defense has been awful. You would think maybe it's a get-right spot for Baker against an Arizona offense that's 31st in EPA per play so far this season. But look at the opponents that Arizona's faced. Kansas City, Las Vegas, Rams, Stafford, Mahomes, Carr. I put Baker well below those three guys. So I think this is a good spot for Arizona as an underdog in a buy low scenario on the road at Carolina. Weather could be a factor. Keep an eye on the hurricane this week, obviously. I can't predict that. But what I can tell you is Arizona's defense has been really good at getting after the passer this year. Their secondary is a disaster, but they're first in pass rush win rate. I think they put pressure on Baker. I think he makes some mistakes, and I think Arizona goes into Carolina this week and they get a win.
AZ covering the spread, getting the win. I'm looking at the Rams taking on the 49ers. And you know me, I love an underdog, and I love an underdog that is the reigning Super Bowl champ. in the Rams, okay? I'm taking their money line at this point. We already mentioned a little bit earlier that the 49ers are probably going to be without their tackle, Trent Williams, which hurts San Francisco's rush attack, and also Jimmy G is way more vulnerable to a Rams D-line that already has 7 sacks through 3 weeks this season, okay? And then you look at the team like the Rams. They're 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 Monday Night Football games. They're 6-0 straight up in their last 6 road games. Their O-line has been what's been the issue for me. And I know, Jared, you say a lot, games are won in the trenches, right? They've looked better over the last 2 weeks, but to win this game, Matthew Stafford needs to stay on his feet. And he can't see the immense pressure because when he does, he throws picks. That's what Matt Stafford does best. So I know the Rams want to cement themselves at the top of the NFC West. This is the game that's going to make them be able to do that. And I love the fact that they're good on Monday Night Football. I love the fact that they're 6-0 straight up in their last 6 road games. Give me the Rams at even money plus 100 to cement themselves at the top of the NFC West, guys. This has been fun.
Okay.
Week 4, boys. Week 4. Let's lock it in, lock it up, and as Tank would say, kiss. Keep it simple, stupid, okay? Best of luck with your bets this weekend. Jared Smith, Tank Williams, Lauren Jabara. This has been Pickswise Playbook presented by Superbook Sports. We'll see you next week for Week 5.